Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today I want to show you a great new study level airliner. Yes, I did say study level because the Fokker 28 from Just Flight really is. So before we start going into the airplane and start flying it, let's have a little quick overview of our plane from the outside. So this is what the outside model looks like. As you can see, from a little bit of distance, looks really good. If we get up a bit closer, it would be nice if they used a little bit sharper textures on the outside, but the good news is on the inside everything is totally crisp, and after all that is where we spent the time close up. Modeling overall is done very nicely in this little airplane, and just before we actually start going into too many of the details, just be aware that this is not going to be a tutorial, but instead I am going to do a fully separate tutorial series for this airplane by the time that it is out for the first couple of days. So, release, by the way, planned for the 12th, so it is supposed to be out very soon, but as always, take that with a little caveat, you know how flight simulation is. Okay, let's continue our walk around across the Fokker 28, and this one over here is the Mark 4000 model, which is the largest of the Fokkers. This one seats 85 passengers and has some improvements over the shorter versions. Now, as we get about it on the walk around, note those lift dumpers that we have over here. Those extend pretty similar to the BAE 146, so you can imagine what kind of drag these things can cause. Continuing the walk around across the wing, we got a couple of interesting features on the wing. First of all, we got the variable sweep by the change in the sweep angle just over here. Do note this is fixed, so it's not variable like, for example, in the F-14 Tomcat. And then we've got some wingtip fences on here as well, indicating that they had some technical problems when they constructed the real-life aircraft. And the wingtip fences usually bring in a little bit of calm into the aerodynamics. Going down over here, we've got the landing gear and the gear base. Not a lot to see in there, but that's just because everything is so cramped under the wings over here. In any case, you wouldn't go under the wing for the walk around anyway. Okay then, final thing, we got the static ports, and well, that paint peeling off in there is not good. That really needs to be fixed. But apart from that, let's go ahead and head inside our aircraft. Some of you keep asking me how I'm doing these walkarounds, and here's a little quick overview. I'm using camera feature, drone speed set somewhere between 3 and 5, and then rotation speed around 45 usually works quite well. Okay then, let's head right over into the cockpit and have a quick look around our airplane. So, on the, let's start with the cabin, because we got a really nice cabin in this little plane. So, first of all, we're going to start with the doors. Now, you can see we've got steps built into the doors over here, and to extend the doors, we got the little switch up here. Now, notice all the sounds while this is happening. So that's our steps extended, that is how the walkboarding would take place, but since we are at London Heathrow over here, we got a jetway, and the plane can actually connect jetways. So if we go back inside, you can see we can put this little cover down here, and what I really like, when that cover is extended, it also triggers the jetway to connect to the airplane. So that's a really neat feature they implemented over there. Okay, going on with the features, if we move a little bit back into the cabin, we can see this is actually a very good detail. Just take a look at the passenger service unit up here and take a look into the detailing that went into the walls or the seats or literally anything inside this cabin. This is really well done cabin. No, you cannot extend the tray tables, but there is a lot more that you can do inside this little thing. So, going to the back of the cabin, no, the toilets are not simulated. However, I am going to show you quite some neat things that are simulated in this that I'm sure you are going to enjoy. In the Mark 4000 version that we are flying today, we've got 85 passenger seats. In the shorter versions, the Mark 1000 to be precise, we got 65, and then there's the Mark 2000 and the Mark 3000 in between. So, remember what the cabin looks like right now. And now let's go up to the front and have a little look into some of the toys that we can play with inside this airplane. I'm saying toys at first because there will be some of the better stuff later on, but let's start with the cabin attendant panel, which is fully simulated. Obviously this is an analog one of a 1968 aircraft, so obviously it is not as sophisticated as, for example, in an Airbus, but look at that, even the circuit breakers on the cabin attendant panel do work. Okay, now though, before we start inside the cockpit, all I want to do real quick is to get some power, and when we have some power, I want to show you some of the features on the cabin attendant panel. So we got the ground power connected. Let's fire up the airplane and just listen to those sounds. Okay, that's our airplane powered up with the AC ground power. Let's go back to the cabin attendant panel and play around with this a little bit. Now, first of all, let's start just top to bottom. Over here, we got a light switch that we can use to illuminate the entrance area. Going a little bit further down, we got the pilot call system. Now, look at the pilot call button just over here when we actually call them. So, you can see the light illuminates in the cockpit, and the cabin crew can then go ahead and reset it in case they no longer want to talk to the pilots or when the pilots have taken it up. So, we got the PA system down here. Not too much that we actually can do up here, but if we go further down, this is where things get more interesting. Over here we got the attendant call panel. So look at what happens when the pilot presses the call button in the cockpit. You can see this actually illuminates the cabin call button in the cabin, and we can obviously reset that down here. Next up is the cabin temperature control. Now the pilot needs to empower the cabin crew to use that, and we can find that little switch up here, and if that's set to the stewardess position, then you can control the cabin temperature back from the attendant panel back here. Also, we can play the boarding music. And change the volume. And now if we go a little bit further down, we can change the cabin lights. So if we press the right hand button, you can see we've got the aft part of the cabin illuminated. The left hand button, we illuminate the forward part of the cabin. Then we've got the entrance lights over here, where we illuminate the front galley. And then finally, we've got the evacuation lights down here. If we turn those on, we get the overwing exit and the exit signs illuminating, which is necessary to be checked by the cabin crew prior to the start of the boarding. Okay. So that's our little cabin attendant panel that we can play with over here. Now, you will say, but why do we need that? Well, the funny thing is, they implemented an entire automatic cabin crew, which is going to give you a lot of those in action. Also, we've got the service door, which opens upwards in the Fokker 28, which is quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Okay, well, enough service door. Let's close that again. Now I would say it is about time that we head right back into the flight deck and start some of the stuff that you guys will probably find a little bit more interesting. We'll start with a general overlook of the flight deck. It all looks pretty complicated at first, but it really isn't. So we've got the electrical power panel on the left hand side over here. Then we've got the APU and the engine starters and the electrical checking. So over here we can see, for example, the external power has correct voltage and frequency. Then we've got the cabin pressure controls, which is down here. And then we've got the bleed air panel, which is this entire thing. But it becomes a lot easier when you see it in action. And then finally we've got the anti-ice up here and down here. So, side panels, not really that much. Mostly a steering switch, the master warning panel, well, engines, obviously. And down here we've got the weather radar, and in the EFB we've got an option to exchange the weather radar with GNS 530 for those of you who prefer modern days RNAV navigation over the good old school navigation we got in here. So, pedestal, well, radio controlled all around down here, and then you've got the autopilot master, and finally you've got the autopilot controls over here and the flight director controls over here, but I am going to go into more detail about that later on. Okay, and that is pretty much the cockpit. Next up, we are going to have a look into the electronic flight bag. So, let's start with the welcome screen, which is over here, and we've got several different options. So I am going to start with the operational flight plan, which we have to fetch when we first load this up. I am recording this with a pre-release version, so don't worry if you see some stuff every now and then. That is entirely normal and going to be fixed for the release. I got the metas down here. They do come from SimBrief, so they are not updated live, just to be sure that you are aware of that. And then finally we've got our SimBrief operational flight plan, which is going to come in very handy as we start flying. With that done, next up is going to be our map. That is just an in-flight map over here. As you can see, that is not aviation specific, just to be sure that we're on the same side there. And then going on, we've got the Navigraph charts, which are fully integrated into the airplane over here. For example, we can use these to set up a very quick shortcut to what we'll need in flight, and that is pretty much it already. Then we can quick access them up here in the Save tab, which is going to come in pretty handy as we are going to start our flight. Okay. From there on, we've got the aircraft tab, which is the one that I loaded. And now it asks me already, do you want to import the SimBrief data? No, we don't, at least not yet. And in here you can refuel the airplane, you can load the passengers, load the cargo, and stuff like that. Control all the doors, pre-select panel states, but probably most importantly, you've got all the simulation options in here. So, many of them are self-explanatory. I just want to show you a couple, which is the vertical speed indicator. We've got the conventional one installed in this airplane, but we can get a more modern one that features a TCAS in here as well, which comes in very handy when you're flying online on VATSIM. Next up, we've got the callouts, cabin announcements, flip chart options, which is over here as far as I remember. And then going on, we've got pilot and cockpit, like hello there to our first officer. Then we've got stuff like the GPS that we can insert. We can put on some HF aerial antennas, which you can hopefully see over here, mounted to the airplane, and stuff like that. Okay, so that is basically our options screen. Going on from there, you can make some notes in here. Comes in pretty handy to write down, for example, ATC clearances, or to write down at which altitudes you want to cross which waypoints, since you got to do manual descent. But talking about manual descent, you do have a top of descent calculator down here, so this can actually come up with some descent planning for you. Finally, we've also got the checklists in here, which are basically going to tell you everything you need to do in order to fly the airplane, or rather control its systems. And finally, we've got the settings where you can do some basic stuff like change the themes, the brightness, and so on. And that concludes the EFB in the Fokker 28. So, you have been listening to me for the past 15 minutes and we actually haven't moved any airplane. So how about we go ahead and change that right now? We are sitting in London Heathrow Airport and we're going to fly the Sabena Mark 4000 Fokker 28 over to Brussels Airport, which is a nice 45-minute hop. Now, for the flight, we will We have loaded some 6 tons of fuel. A sim brief profile will be available by the release or shortly thereafter so that you can plan your flights properly. However, do take into account that if you are not using the GNS 530, then you are going to rely on conventional navigation. But more on that as we go on with the flight. So for now, let's go over right into the cockpit, and I am going to follow the procedures from the tutorial document. However, we are not following the tutorial flight, so just to be sure that we're on the same side over here. Our airplane is loaded up already. We are basically ready to go with all of this. So how about we go ahead and do our pre-flight. So battery's on, and the battery voltages should be above 23. As you can see, they are. So now we can go ahead and run the APU extinguisher test before we start up the APU. It is rather hot today, so we are definitely going to need that. Okay, APU extinguisher test is good. So let's go ahead and put on the APU main switch. This is gonna need 10 seconds in order to open the air inlet door. And once that is fully open, we can go ahead and start the APU. But before we do that, let's quickly go to the air conditioning panel and set one of the main switches to on, like this. So 10 seconds are over, we press the APU starter, and we can now see the APU start up on the overhead panel over here. It takes a little while, and once it is at 95%, which is basically where the green arc starts, we can go ahead and switch on the APU generator and the APU air in order to start cooling our cabin to make it nice and comfortable before our passengers arrive. Here we go. Okay, number 3 generator goes on and the air conditioning goes on. Now do listen to the air conditioning as I'm putting on the APU bleed air. Here we go. So now we can start with our panel scan, and we start on the electrical panel. We got the main generators on, the transformer rectifiers are on, and all the guarded switches are guarded. Emergency lights can go on. Go up to the next panel, APU is running, engine master switch is off, and we can monitor our APU generator voltage over here. Obviously, the cabin differential pressure is at 0, and the cabin altitude is on the airfield elevation. Then go up to the bleed panel, got the switches in auto and on. Down here we've got one of the 2 main switches on. Make sure that the switches are guarded, and we've got automatic control over the temperature. Do note we can change this manually, so over here we can take them, for example, cold, hot, back to auto. But we don't need any of those. Well, we obviously control the cockpit, but for the cabin, if we have this switch in guarded and in the stewardess position, the cabin can control them. Okay. Going down further, we can pre-select our cabin pressure, and we're going to climb to an altitude of 23,000 feet today. And you always set the cabin altitude 1,000 higher than you actually plan to fly. So I'm setting 24,000 here, and we plan to climb to 23,000. Then going all the way up to the top again, we simply go down, make sure that the anti-air is switched off on the ground, obviously. And finally we can switch on our window heat, which we'll switch to the low position. And that's it. Going down here, cabin signs can come on. And then we go on further. Ultimate braking is in the forward position. North wheel steering armed. Test the master warning panel. And reset that once again. So main panels, basically we want to make sure we don't see any flags. Those are going to be out of view in a few moments. And then we go down to the lower part. Down here we can see the brake pressure, and we want at least 1600 psi, which we just about have. So we can use the electric system 1 pump to pressurize hydraulics, and that is going to increase our accu pressure like that. Okay, pump going back off. Like that. Any skid? Let's quickly take away that. So, any skid working on both sides of the wheels. Then going down further, we can select our weather radar into standby position at a decent range. Even though weather is supposed to be good today, we always want to prepare this anyway. Okay, down here, flight control utility switch is norm, but we do get the pump warnings. Going down here we can run the TVI test, which is going to increase the engine vibrator meters. Like that. Works fine. Fire warnings. Working nice as well. Fuel quantity, just over 3,000 per tank. That is fine. Door warning light test. And then we are already on the FO side. Just the master caution panel, and then we can obviously reset the master warnings. QNH is going to be 1010 on this one, and then we can go ahead down to the pedestal, test the fuel pump one by one. Nothing in the center tanks, so they remain off. Here we go. Then down below the throttles, make sure that the TTC is in the takeoff position, not in the climb position. Lights. On the left side we got the lights for moving the plane. On the right side we got the lights, the static ones like the nav lights, strobe light, anti-collision and so on. Then we go down further. We can select our radios. And even though I'm not flying this one on VATSIM yet, I am going to pre-select my standard VATSIM frequencies here. Honeycomb on the left side and then Guard on the right side, and make sure to turn the volume control up. That one is important. Okay, master radio buttons on and the gust block is engaged, and with that we are done with the pre-flight preparation. So what we can do now is to prepare the airplane for our departure, and in order to do that we can take our Navigraph chart, and this is what we are gonna fly today, the Dettling to Golf departure room from runway 27 left of London Heathrow. So we'll start with a nav setup. The turn is defined by 1 dm from the ILS, but if you go down here you can see you can actually use it from the London VOR as well, and we'll do that because we need the London VOR a little bit later here again as well. So 13.9 going in, sorry, 13.6 going active over here. Also note we can, or rather we have to select the DMEs on at this point, otherwise we aren't going to get any indications. 13.6 on there. Then we need the APSM NDB frequency 316. We can select that down here on the ADFs. Yes, a little bit old school, but you get where this is going. So 316, something around that. We'll have to check it in flight if they're actually working, but we'll do that when we are actually in the air, because we aren't going to receive those NDBs on the ground anyway, as they are located too far away from the airport. Okay, frequency, ADF, and that's it. Cool. Transponder. Reselect Mil Charlie, and we can already switch it into the standby position. Then let's go ahead with our next nav 8, and that's going to be Dettling VOR 17.3 on the number 1. 17.3. Finally, we need some courses. So obviously on the number 1 we'll take 091. Here we go, 091, and then I'll use 136 as a reminder for the QDM inlet to APSM. 136 into the other course. Like that. Okay, cool. So that is our nav 8 setup complete. The last thing we can do is the flight director. And here comes an interesting fact. In this airplane, the flight director is independent of the autopilot. So you've got the autopilot controls here, you've got the flight director controls here, and they are indicating different from one another. Just to make your life a little bit more complicated. So something like that should be runway heading. So we set 10 degrees nose up and the node selector into heading. Okay, last thing we can do for our preparation is to pre-select our takeoff thrust, and for that there is actually a table in the manual. So you've got the percentage selected down here, and today we are not going to use any assumed temperature, so we set this to 170. You get that number from the table in the manual. And then, when we set our takeoff thrust, you simply put the needle over here to 100%, and that is your takeoff thrust. And if you, for example, want to use an assumed temperature for your takeoff, so you select a different number over here according to the table, you still put your needle to 100%. And that is how you can easily control the engines on takeoff, since you do not have an auto throttle in this airplane. Also down here we've got the table, or we've got our flip chart with our takeoff speeds, and we are going to do a flaps 11 takeoff today. And as I'm setting this, the speed bugs are going to set automatically, so you can watch this as I am changing them around between the different settings. You can see how everything is set automatically on the speed bugs on your speed indicator for that. Okay, and with that our pre-flight procedure is pretty much completed. So last thing for us to do over here is our initial climb, which is going to be 6,000 at first. Okay, and with that we are ready to go. So let's go ahead and get a pushback tuck. I'm not going to use GSX for that one, but instead I'm going to show you what just flight included over here. We'll go to the aircraft menu, then we can get a tuck over here. And as we're about to do that, let's disconnect the external power. APU generators running and supplying voltage. So that's our external power disconnected. Then let's quickly go back and close our doors. So when I'm lifting the panel over here, it also sets the command to disconnect the jetway, which is going to happen now. Okay, jetway is going. Let's close the doors. And you can hear the flight attendants kicking into action there. Alright, cool. Then doors are closed. With that we also close our flight deck door. And with that we can start preparing our airplane. Okay, very quick takeoff briefing here before we go. We are parking on the Kilo apron. Let's quickly remove the ground power and the chocks. Okay, get me my charts. So we are parking on the Terminal 2 Alpha down here. Stand is 217, pushing back in a kilo, and taxi out Kilo Alpha November 3 to the holding point, and we have that Lowman over here, or Locky, where we have to be sure that we don't cross those without clearance. Dattling to Golf departure, very quick one straight ahead 2DME London, left hand turn onto the QDM 136 towards Epsom, and then radial 271 Imola Dattling, climbing at 6,000 initially, which is selected up here. We're going to start on the nav number 1, and that means we have London DME up here and Dattling up here. And finally we'll switch to ADF on the needles over here. So ADF number 1 is selected and VOR number 2 is selected. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? No? Very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our pushback tuck. Aircraft, pushback, and then we want a speed of, let's say, 4 knots. Anti-collision light is on. Fuel pumps are on. Let's go ahead and get our pushback. Brake released. Start the pushback, please. And here we go. The engine start is a fully manual start. We do not have a FADEC on this plane. For that reason I am going to push us back over here first, since this is a manual pushback, not using GSX. And once the pushback is completed, we are going to go ahead and start our engines on the taxiway. Okay, let's start the turn. Note you can control the steering angle with the keys over here. Pretty much like this. Now comes the challenge of putting the plane onto the center line. somewhat like this. Stop. Okay. Brake set. How good did I push myself? Yeah. Could have been better, but knowing my luck, I would not have been surprised if I ended up within the construction site down there. So, overall, I am quite happy with this pushback. Okay then, let's go ahead and start our engines. The beacon light is on. So, Thrustmaster on. And now look at the air conditioning and the valves as soon as I put my Thrustmaster into engine number 2. Here we go, the valves close, the start valve opens. So, the high pressure part of the engine is rotating up at 15%. We put on the fuel, like so, 15%. Fuel, leave it to the start position. Now the engines are starting up, and at either 400 degrees TGT or 50% on the high pressure spool, we are going to increase the fuel all the way to the forward position. Quick little clarification on some of the wording over here. They refer to the two spools in here as high pressure and low pressure. Now, high pressure is nothing else than what you're used to as N2 from the Boeings and Airbuses, and low pressure is N1. Okay, so that's number 2, and you could just see the electrical system coming online. So let's do the same on engine number 1 now. Auto valve is open, you can hear the air conditioning come back. So we've got the high pressure spool coming up. At 15%, the outer are the 10s, the small one here is showing the 1s, so when this is at 5, like so, the fuel valve goes to start position. Fuel flow is increasing, and here we go. Okay, passing 50. Valve goes all the way forward, and off we go. So, let's very quickly check the generators, make sure that they are generating as they should, which they are. Nice. So, engine generator off. Air conditioning on, the engine anti-ice can go to the auto position. Like so. Hydraulic systems are all looking good down there. Flaps to the 11 position. And finally we are going to release the dust lock. Okay, got the master warning light illuminated, but nothing there anymore, so we can just go ahead and reset that. Okay, finally APU air can go off since the engines are now powering the bleed air system. And then we can shut down the APU. Here we go. Give it 10 seconds before we close the flick the main switch, and then we're ready to taxi. So taxi light can come on down here. Then we're going to arm the lift dumpers. So they are showing ready, and we can start our taxi. With the parking brake released, it certainly taxis a bit better. You can see it actually starts rolling by itself in idle thrust, but thrust a little bit above idle is going to give us a good acceleration like so. Taxi straight ahead, second to the left, and then first to the right. As you can see on the taxi chart. Straight ahead, left, right. Overall, taxi behavior of the airplane is quite nice. It is well controllable, easy to handle the speed, easy to handle the turns. The one thing that is a little bit strange for you guys at first is that you do not have a ground speed indication in this, so you actually got to judge your speed yourself and just make sure that you don't overspeed it. Overall, when the plane feels comfortable, then you are probably doing everything right. And that's really all you can ask for, is it? Okay, so clear right, clear left. During taxi, quick check on the collector cells down there, making sure that you do not have any light illuminated, because if there was a light on, it would mean that there would be insufficient fuel in the collector cells. Okay, 10 seconds over, we can flick off the APU master, and the engine start master should have been off anyway. So, Yoke and Patron. Originally I wanted to go to this holding point, but just look at that majestic Concorde over there. I gotta go closer to the Concorde. I think you guys will accept that. But in the meantime, transponder on and transponder on out. Lovely Concorde, isn't it? Okay, we reached the holding point. Before we line up, let's do a very quick review of the takeoff briefing. It's going to be a left seat takeoff with the PAX auto bleeds on, engine anti-ice off. Takeoff speeds for this one, 136, 136, 141, and flap retractor 153. So we are going to climb initially at V2 plus 10 knots, so that means as soon as we start the acceleration we can retract the flaps. Little word here on how the takeoff thrust works. There actually is a little notch up here, and you will hear that acoustically, but you are not going to see it visually. But when the thrust levers are on that notch, we should basically get 100% thrust. Okay, noise abatement procedure number 2, accelerating at 1,100 feet on the altimeter. Speed will initially limit it a little bit for the first turn, and at 2 DME from London we're going to start our left-hand turn on the QDM 136 in Mount to Epsom. Alright, MSA 2100, so 3000 keeps us safe in any case. Any questions on departure briefing? No? Okay, very good. Then let's advise the cabin to prepare.
Come through, please take your seats with you.
Quite cool, isn't it? They open the door to tell you that the cabin is ready, and then they close the door again. I love that feature. Just a little gimmick, of course, but clear on the left, clear on the right. So, are you ready? Let's go. Take off. So watch the thrust down there. Should be about 100%. There we go, and that is our takeoff thrust setting. Rotate. Positive climb. Gear up. So 15 degrees of pitch usually works quite well. And then trim it out. Autopilot on. And here we go. Okay, flaps up. QDME. We can start the left-hand turn onto 136. Okay, Autopilot, be a little bit gentle, please. That's better. $1,000 to go. And you can see it is now capturing the altitude. Pitching down. Nice, as it should. Okay, then we'll let it accelerate all the way towards 250 knots. And then we're initially going to continue our climb to flight level 230. So we can arm the beam mode, that's going to arm the VOR. And then as we reach 250 knots in a few moments, let's go speed holds. And obviously select a higher altitude, then that is going to work. So, climber flight level 230. Like so. Okay, set standard. Also set the flight director to VOR. As I said earlier, these are separate from one another. Basically, the plane is going to continue on this heading until about 10 dB from London, that you can see on the DME down there. And then it is going to start the left-hand turn onto the radial. That's how we set it up. So now that we're climbing, we can set the PTC into the climb position, and then we can adjust our thrust so that we've got a TGT of about 460 degrees up there. So that's just about the lower of the amber arc. So pretty much like this. And that's our climb thrust setting. Reaching 10,000, we go into the pitch hold mode, and then pitch it down a little bit. Oh, pitch down, pitch down, pitch down. Really takes a while. Now we take 270 knots, like so, and we go back to ES hold. Now the plane maintains that. Easy, isn't it? Okay, passing 10,000, and I believe I forgot my lights. Yes, I did. So that's also the reason we didn't get any pilot calls for the takeoff. I forgot the landing lights. Happens. Okay, and I would say this looks quite smooth to me. Let's release our cabin. Alright, and now we are flying. So as we fly along, let's take a very quick look into the en route chart so that we can prepare for our en route navigation. We can make our life a little bit easier as well though, and simply use the operational flight plan. Okay, ice detected. As you can see, the anti-air already turned on automatically, like so. And that should be all we need. And technically speaking, we should be out of the icing condition anyway, so this should go out in a moment. But we all know Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I don't think I need to say anymore, do I? In any case, we got to stay on top of the navigation of the airplane, so for that reason, let's keep fiddling with that. So I'll quickly show you the en route chart, and then I'll show you the operational flight plan and how you can figure out your navigation from that. So this is our chart, and I'm using SimToolkit Pro to display the Navigraph charts over here. As you can see, we are currently on the Detling to Fox departure towards Detling, and then we're going to leave it on the track over here. If we go into the Navigraph charts, we can obviously either just scroll in and read the track from the chart, like over here, and we are flying in lower airspace, so please show me that. So we can see we are going to leave Detling on a 092-degree track. That is what we've got over here. We might also just click on the that part, and then we get our airway information over here, minimum level, maximum level. But if we go to the fixes, we can also see Detling, and we are going to leave it on a magnetic course outbound of 092 degrees to continue on this airway. So that's how you can get that information from your en route chart. Let's also view another possibility to get that, and that is from your operational flight plan. So if we go into the OFP over here, and every OFP layout is going to be different. This is the Ryanair layout, so you can get it from here. So if you see the Detling VOR, then you go to the right, and up here you've got the initial magnetic track, which is 092. And then you can see this basically continues all the way along 092, 093 to the waypoint Maddox, which we're going to leave on 192. That is basically what our en route navigation is going to look like. We can go ahead already and tune the next VOR. So we got Detling on the number 1, and then we can tune Foxy on the number 2, 14.5. Just be sure when you are using this that right now we're navigating on the left side. So don't change that left side, but use the right side instead. And we set the frequency we want as 14.5. We can go ahead 14.5, pre-select that. And you can see we are already receiving the top C VOR. Okay, and with that, we are flying. As we're above 10,000, it's a good idea to check our cabin pressure. And as you can see, the target altitude is 3,000, and the cabin is just about at 3,000 already. So it should reach at any moment. Then the vertical speed is going to go to 0, and our differential pressure is somewhere in the region of around 6 psi. And with that, we are pretty much done for our departure. So, reaching the Detling VOR, let's quickly go into heading mode. But the airplane is going to do that automatically. As soon as we enter the cone of silence, so the area directly above the VOR, where we lose the signal, like now, you can see it transition from beam mode into roll mode. Now we can select the outbound course, 092. And once we are outside the cone of silence, like so, we go back into beam mode, and now it's going to track that course outbound. Easy, isn't it? Alright. So, just a very quick recap of the autopilot here. The autopilot and the flight director are separate from one another. You got the left side, which is the autopilot control, then you got the right side, which is the flight director control. You also got the autopilot engagement down here, the yaw damper is up here, and the pitch and roll controls are down here. And that's pretty much the most important things we'll need to fly this airplane. So, in flight, if you see the flight director commanding something that the autopilot is not following, like for example, we go into the heading mode and then select my heading off track, you will see the flight director is going to command turn to follow the heading, while the airplane itself is simply going to follow the beam that I've armed up here. So you've got to keep track of both of them and use them as needed. Also, during the climb, keep an eye on temperatures. You really don't want them above 460. So we might have to pull off a little bit of thrust over here in order to get them back down. Okay, left is set, right side can even use a bit more thrust. And that's pretty much that. Okay. Climbing at 1,000 feet a minute. And then we are almost at 1 to go. And we can already start thinking about what is going to come next. 1,000 to go. Checked. And as soon as we reach the cruise flight, we can let the plane accelerate. Normal cruising speed would be Mach 0.70. However, since we are flying in the lower level airspace, we will be using 290 knots indicated airspeed, which is going to be something around Mach 0.67 or so. But lower airspeed, indicated airspeed, will fly at 290. Let's select this up already. And you can see as I'm changing the airspeed bug, the right side of the ADI over there, that slow and fast indicator, is changing as well. So a good technique to control your speed in this plane is to set the target speed bug and then just fly based on this. If you're slow, you add thrust. If you're fast, you pull thrust. Easy, isn't it? And that is how we are going to fly the cruise. We're leveling off in 230 right now. We'll let the airspeed build up until it reaches 290, and then we are just going to pull the thrust off slightly, and that is all we need in order to fly our cruise. So we wait for the bar to come up and match the circle. Ice detected. I seriously doubt it. There is absolutely nothing out here that might ice up. But then again, the icing logic of the sim can be strange at times, so let's not blame the plane. Let's not blame the plane for that, but rather Microsoft. Okay, altitude hold on the flight director as well. Now we're reaching 290 knots. I'm going to pull off a little bit of thrust. And as long as you are careful with your thrust, the speed control is really easy in this. You can see right now we're still accelerating a bit, so I'm pulling off a little bit more thrust. And you will eventually get it under control like that. Here you go. Stop the acceleration, so a tiny bit less thrust, and then we should basically get back to our target airspeed. Okay, nice. So, next up, we can already think about our arrival, since this is a pretty short flight across the English Channel. And for that, let's bring up our charts. We can see we're going into Brussels, looking into the late weather we had. The wind is coming from 240 at 10, that means runway 25 is going to be in use. And temperature 26 degrees centigrade. Well, quite warm, QNH 1014. So let's bring up the charts, search, arrival. Here we go, we've got the Coxie 7 Alpha arrival. That's going from Coxie towards Kirky. And then from then we'll get some sort of navigation close to our airport. So for that we can go out to the airport, and then we'll probably fly the ILS Zulu approach. Or the ILS Yankee approach. No, Yankee comes from Flora, so Zulu it is. Runway 25 left. You can see we've got our navigation over here. From Kirky we proceed towards Brno. And then from there, right hand turn 203 inbound Hotel Uniform Lima until we intercept the ILS. Looks easy. It is easy. Finally, obviously, we will need a taxi chart. Put the airport chart down here, and then finally, where is my parking stance? Here it is. Perfect. Okay, so let's think about the descent. We are currently at 23,000 feet. Let's see if we've got any altitude constraints. Not really. Maybe something later on here? No. Okay, so let's make our life easy. We could fly a continuous descent approach, but in a plane like this, I really prefer to do things nice and slow. So what we're going to do is we are going to plan to be level at the 4,000 here at Bruno. Well, let's make it 3,000 at Bruno, and then from there we'll fly this about 10 miles and then onto the final. So 3,000 at Bruno means we've got to lose 20,000 feet, for which we're going to need 60 nautical miles. We've got 35 miles, or 34 in Monokirky. That means we have 26 miles after in Monokirky, where we need to start our descent. 26 miles inbound. Now we can do a little bit of mathematics here. We've got the Alpha Fox India VOR 5.7, and it's at 26 miles. So basically, when we are approximately 31 miles from Alpha Fox India, we're going to start our descent. And that's how we are going to do these things. So the next thing we can think about, of course, is our navigation once again. We've just lost the Deathling VOR, and we can have a look into where we start our turn towards Coxie to follow the airway. So if we look at this, we can see that Maritz is the point where we start the turn, and that's 12 miles prior to Coxie. So don't worry if you lose the VOR. We simply flew out of range, but we've been well established on the track, so we don't need to worry at all. The only thing I am going to do is I will set Coxie active on my side now, 14.5, and then select our inbound course according to our en route chart. So if we look at that, you can see the inbound on here is going to be 130 degrees. So let's go ahead and select a course of 130 degrees on the number 1 side. Here we go, 130. And we are past this already. Interesting. Okay, so we flew straight ahead for a little bit too long. But let's just go heading, turn to the right, and then we are going to re-intercept this. Interesting that we're across this. I could have sworn the turning point would have been at 12 DME. But looks like I might have been mistaken. No, it is 12 DME. If you look at the chart, you can see it's 12 nautical miles from Maritz towards Coxie. So I'm not 100% sure why we overflew this, but you get where this is going anyway. What we can do, we'll get ourselves an ATC clearance to fly direct to Coxie VOR now, like this. So we'll just set the course directly, and now we're going to navigate towards this. What's more interesting, what we need to prepare for, is the outbound course from Coxie, and that one we have on our star chart now. So let's just select that course like this. So the outbound course is going to be 100 degrees. And that's what we have to intercept. So what I am going to do is the following. We are pretty much navigating directly to the station now. Let's go ahead and select our heading bug to this and go to heading. And obviously flying at cruising speed, right now we're doing 390 knots, so we will have quite a turn radius. What I'll do, 5 miles prior to Coxie, like now, I'll simply turn left to a heading of 100, and then from there we're going to intercept the course outbound 100 from Coxie. Like so. Okay, now our plane is turning into that direction, and once we're established, overflying the station right now, so we are slightly overshooting. Let's give it a slight intercept. There comes the radial. Let's press the beam button. Warlock is active, and now we are establishing ourselves onto the radial outbound. Like this. So So next nav aid, we said we can use the AFLI 114.9, and we can use that for our descent as well. So I'm going to use VOR number 2 on 14.9, like so. And up here we've got the DME from that VOR. We set 30 miles inbound, we start our descent, so in 20 nautical miles we're going to start our descent. For the descent preparation, we can select our landing flaps, which is going to be flaps 42, and that is going to set the speed box automatically. The only thing I don't like about that is that it sets my yellow speed bug, which I am normally using for my cruising speed. So the rest of that is set automatically, that one I'm simply resetting. If we look into the approach chart for the ILS Zulu approach, we can see our minimums is going to be not on this chart, okay? Where is the separate approach? Oh, okay, I went for the wrong chart. My apologies for that. So ILS Zulu 25, this is the one we're looking for. Now obviously minimum 350 feet, 200 above ground, and the 200 radio is selected up here as well. Okay, airfield elevation 170 feet, so as soon as we start our descent, we're going to select the cabin pressure down to the field elevation, so to 100 feet. And with that, we're pretty much set up already. What we can do is we can switch over from the VOR that we're flying outbound, so from Coxie VOR, we can switch over to AFLI VOR, and that should provide us with the navigation inbound to Turkey. Even though we could obviously fly it outbound on Coxie as well, but let's switch over to 14.9. And in order to do that, we are going to go into heading, and select 14.9. And here we go, you can see we are straight on it, back in a beam mode, and obviously very tiny deviation, so the airplane is taken straight onto that. You might as well correct it. So you can simply correct it with a course as well there. Okay, at 30 miles we start our descent, so let's go ahead, select our target altitude down. Minimum en route altitude here is flight level 70, so let's go ahead and select that. Here we go, flight level 70 is set. And at 30 miles we're going to start our descent. We're doing a ground speed of currently 460 knots. I somewhat doubt it. No, that's too fast. We aren't doing 460 right now. We're in the region somewhere around 400 knots. So by the time we start our descent, which should be now, we go to ES, we pull off the thrust, we're looking for a descent rate somewhere in the region of about 2,000 feet a minute. Landing gear warning, we can cancel that. And the airplane is now going to stabilize itself. And we are going to adjust the thrust so that we get roughly 2,000 feet a minute. Cabin altitude, as I mentioned, we're going to set that down to the field elevation, which is 100 feet. And now we are descending. We should do a couple of cross-checks as we go down, so Turkey is the next turning point, 5.7 miles inbound Alpha Fox India, and then we're going to turn left towards Brno. 10.6, so we can go ahead and pre-select 10.6 on nav 2 already. 10.6, and the inbound course for that we can find on here is going to be 070. So let's pre-select 070 on the course number 2. Like so. Okay, plane is descending. We are prepared for the next turn that we're going to take. But we aren't receiving Brno yet, it seems. 10.6, 10.6. No, we don't receive it yet. But no need to worry. What we can always do Just go to heading, switch it over in nav2, but as you can see, there's nothing coming in quite yet. So back to nav1, back into beam mode in order to keep tracking. So from Bruno, we want to be in 3000 over here, so Kirky is about 34 miles outbound, meaning we can be in about 13,000 by Kirky. And if we look at this, we've got about 6 miles to Kirky, meaning we'll lose about 2,000 feet. So we are like 1,000 feet high at the moment, but that is really nothing to worry about. That is absolutely nothing to worry about, since we gave ourselves quite a bit of margin later on in the approach. Pre-selecting the target track of 070. So 5.8 miles is Kirky. We need to fly a bit of a turn, so at about 6.5 miles inbound to the Alpha Fox India VOR, I'm going to start the left turn. And if we're looking outside, you can see there's Brussels down there, so we seem to be doing something right. Okay, 5.5 miles, let's go to heading, nav2, and now we're actually receiving Bruno as well. Going to beam, and with nav2 selected up here, the airplane is now following the airplane is now intercepting the radial 250 inbound to Bruno. So that is 10.6, we can pre-select that on here as well. 10.6, and if we look at this, we take 4 minutes to fly there, 400 knots ground speed, and those 4 minutes at a rate of descent of about 2,000 feet is going to mean we are going to descend by 8,000 feet. So if we continue like that, we are going to reach 8,000 feet lower, 6,000 feet over at Bruno. We want it to be a little bit lower over there, and we still have to lose some airspeed, so let's pull off a bit more thrust, cancel the gear warning. I'm just going straight into idle now. Here we go. Quick check on the cabin altitude. It's now just below 2,000, descending at 350 feet a minute. Nice. Fast modes can come on. Next up will be the deceleration at flight level 100, and we're going to reduce our speed towards 250 over there. Let's go ahead and pre-select that. So in order to reduce the speed, we will have to switch towards pitch mode, then use the pitch selector to pitch it up. And once the speed is down at 250, we can then go back into EAS mode, and then the airplane is going to follow this. Also, along this route, we can already go down to 3,000 feet as minimum en route altitude. Let's select that, 3,000. And as we do that, we can also set our QNH. So that's going to be 1014. But set QNH 1014, passing 10,000 now. And then we go into pitch hold. Pitch up, hold that until our pitch is where we want it to be. Obviously we do not want to climb accidentally, but like this, almost level flight. Speed is coming back, and once we're at 250 knots, we'll go back into the EAS hold mode. As the speed comes down, obviously we are losing a little bit of lift. For that reason, we need to adjust the pitch every now and then. Here we go, 250 knots, back in the EAS mode. And now we continue the descent. We're 11 miles prior to Bruno VOR, so that means that in an idle descent we can lose roughly 3,000 feet. Means we end up 6,000 feet over Bruno, a little bit higher than planned, but the ground speed was probably just a bit more, and for that reason we didn't descend as steep. But ending up about 6,000 over at Bruno, we still got to fly outbound over here, and if we take into account the final over here is 11 miles, so that is easily 11 miles as well. So that basically tells us we are proceeding quite well in terms of our altitude. So the next heading after Bruno is going to be inbound Hotel Uniform Lima, 17.55. 1755, we are receiving that already, and we can pre-select 0 to 203 on the course. .203 pre-selected. So over at Bruno, start the right-hand turn 203. Can also pre-select that on the heading. Like so. And now once we are over at the VOR, all we do is hit the heading button, switch our navigation, and that would be it already. So keep in mind the slant range. We're reading 2.5 miles here, but we're at 6,000 feet, and 6,000 feet equals about 1 nautical mile. So that means even though we see 1.9 miles here, we are actually a mile closer. So we're at 0.6 miles right now. So we expect to be a right-hand turn any moment. Pretty much now. Yep, here we go. In the cone of silence. Switch over, and that is our next inbound track. And then we can pre-select the ILS, 110.35. Here we go, 1035 and 249 on the course. Here we go. Okay, going through that beam, let's just activate the beam mode, that's going to make our life easy. And then we can pull out a bit of the speed as well, that is going to avoid the continuous overshooting that we are doing here. So we're looking for about 220 knots. And since we're below 10,000, I once again forgot the lights. It is a little bit, I need to get used to this. I really need to get used to the lights being down here. It completely puts them outside of my view, and therefore outside of my mind. Okay, speed is coming down towards 220. Let's go ahead and reduce it even further towards 200 knots, which is where we can later extend the first flap. Now we're basically intercepting this with a slight overshoot, so something like this. And once we're established on here, I'm going to switch to heading holds. So the plane is turning left right now in order to establish itself. Well, that looks all good to me. Speed is coming back very slowly. On the DME indication up there, we see the number 2 radio, where we have the ILS selected. So we're now 14.7 miles from the ILS. You can see that at 11 miles we're going to intercept it, so we are like 2.5, 3 miles to run over here. For that reason, I am going to switch this into heading mode right now. And change over to the ILS. Here we go. And then we can arm the beam mode. Next up, we go down to an altitude of 2,000 feet, which is where our platform is. Okay, localizer should come alive any moment. I'm going to use a little bit of a speed brake to help the airplane get down, since we're showing above the glide slope here. And let's go ahead and select 1035 on both sides. Oh, localizer is coming. Localizer captured. Approach mode is active. Let's just put it in a beam once more real quick. Should be 249, obviously. So we're intercepting the localizer. Oh, we've also got a glide slope indication here. Okay, we let the plane level off in 2000, then we let the speed come back, and as the speed comes back, we are going to select our landing configuration slowly. Here we go, runway inside, straight ahead. So, 180 knots, let's do that for now, and let it slowly bleed back to 160. Use our speed back over here as a reference. Okay, flux 11. So, glide slope armed. Look at that, it descended 100 feet too far. Glide slope alive. Gear down. And flaps 18. Flaps 25. Glide slope capture. And set missed approach altitude 4,000. So, flaps 40. $128 knots is what we're looking for. We'll fly it slightly faster, so we're looking at about 133. Which is what we have now. Perfect. Lift dump is armed. And that is it. Let's fly a bit manually. Autopilot off. The manual handling characteristics of this airplane is really nice, I have to say. It really feels like a pilot's airplane, and it lies in the air very, very nicely. Back. So keep that speed up, please. Here we go, that's better. And even though it does not have an auto throttle, the speed is controllable really in a nice manner, I have to say. Very well controllable, an absolute joy to hand fly. Once again, glide slope and Puppy seem a little disaligned here.
100.
Correct.
Minimums.
Continue.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Oh no, that was a little bit too far. Come on, get down. Here we go. That's what we want. Okay. Let it roll forward for a bit and then come off to the right hand side. And that looks like where we want to go. Okay, crossing runway 19. And we'll start taxiing to the gate. So this is where we vacated, Charlie 4, crossing over here into Active 3 and then onto the outer taxiways. And once we're on the outers, we can then go ahead and start our cleanup. By the way, some nice textures missing there on some of the vehicles. I did play around a little bit with the scenery manually, and probably I messed something up. Okay, runway is vacated. Then, landing lights, flare lights, and taxi lights. Ropes can come off. Then, speed brake is up already, flaps are going up, APU, turn on the main button, then wait for 10 seconds before we do anything further. And finally the pro beads can come off and the engine anchor. Well, the radar standby, there it is. APU starts. Okay, and finally, fast block on, yaw damper off. And that's it. So in preparation for the engine shutdown, we are going to test the engine fire warnings in this. Here we go, that works fine. Cool, the APU is up and running, generator can come on. And then we'll take the next gate over here. And onto the gates, taxi light off, entry tracked. And here we are. Nice. Okay, parking brake set. So, taxi light off, brake set, and then we have external. We have power established. APU generators working, so shut down the engines. Engines coming off, fasten belts off. Then on the air conditioning panel we set one of the main switches to off. The APU air switch coming on. Boost pump switches going off. And the engines are stopped, so the anti-collision lights can go off. And that's it. Let's go ahead, insert the chocks. Like so. And that means we can release our brakes. Cool. And that is our first flight completed. Let's go ahead and get our passengers deboarded. Okay, we are going to use the jetway, so we are going to prepare the plane for that, and that should give us the jetway theoretically any moment. Practically, probably parked a little bit out of range over here, so my apologies for that. If you look at this, yeah, I could probably have parked a little bit further forward, but that is fine. In any case, I do hope that you have enjoyed this little flight. Now, this was just my first look. I am probably going to do a tutorial series on this airplane over the next couple of days, so thank you very much for flying along. I hope that you have learned something on this. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to see you again on the next video. In the meantime, do check out the Just Flight Fokker 28, and at this point, once again, thank you very much to Just Flight for giving me a preview copy. I see you all around again on the next video. In the meantime, enjoy your flights, enjoy the Fokker when it comes out. And if you liked the video, then do leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing, I would love to see you as a channel member, giving you early access to new videos before they're released for everyone else. Or if you don't want to join, you can always make a one-time donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below, as it really helps out the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon.